Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Let's have some fun. Thursday was a support group meeting again, and I met most of my new transgender friends there. I went there as a woman as well. Even though I didn't seem to need that much support anymore, I'd continue to go to the meetings to meet my new friends and perhaps give support for my peers as well. The Tuesday of the following week, I saw an endocrinologist about the hormones. 4 weeks earlier, I was still taking my first steps as a woman in public, but I had changed a lot in the meantime. Many people told me it was visible for them, too. It was time to tell my friends, who I hadn't seen in a while due to Emily, and the fact that I spent most of my free time as a woman now. When I finally revealed the true reason, they were all quite surprised. Most of them were okay with it, but a few rejected me for my choice. Some had already met Emily and so thought that she was the reason. I knew there would always be some loss, but I could deal with it because I didn't want to lead two lives. I also planned to transition at college as soon as I could. I didn't have enough space to host it myself, so I invited them to a bar and would pay for the first 2 rounds of drinks. Since my birthday was approaching, I decided to make that day my transition date and combine it with my transition party. The real-life test would officially begin on February 14th, 2023. But since I had no plans to undergo surgery, it didn't matter when it started. A few more things needed to be done, starting with legally changing my name. The process was actually much simpler than I had anticipated. I simply filled out a form and provided a letter from my doctor stating that I was receiving treatment for gender dysphoria and needed to live as a woman as part of that. They said I would receive my new driver's license in 4 to 6 weeks. I spoke with the student counselor at college, and he said it would be no problem. I seemed not to be the first student who transitioned. I'd have to wait for my driver's license to change my records, but I could attend the classes as woman before that. I'd have to wait that long before I could change my other documents. On February 9th, I had my second session with my shrink. I just reported how my life was going and of my impending change at college. As I didn't really need another session, we agreed that I'd see her next in about 6 months. Finally, it was my birthday. To be on the safe side, I told my teachers about my upcoming change. Normally, Emily would have to work on Saturdays, but she took the day off so we could celebrate. Emily kissed me awake and then served me breakfast in bed. My girlfriend gave me my birthday present after I had finished eating and instructed me to open it right away. It was a very nice set of clothing, consisting of a stunning red teddy with black trim and garters, matching undies, and black seamed stockings. It was a good start into the rest of my life as a woman. Emily insisted that I wear it on my birthday. My hair had grown long enough in the interim to be cut and styled femininely, even though it was still quite short, and I had an appointment at the beautician for 4. But even though I was quite adept at applying my own makeup by this point, a professional could still do it much better. For my party that night, I wore my new clothes, including the seamed stockings, a tight black dress that only reached mid-thigh, and my 4 inches high black heels. I felt beautiful when I looked in the mirror before I left. I tried to make an impression on my friends, and it seemed to work. When they saw me, many of my male friends looked shamelessly at my features, and my female friends also complimented me on my appearance. Few people had ever met me before, but I was dressed casually when they came to visit me at home in the days following my coming out. In fact, my friends' relationships with me have changed. Before, I was a friend to the men, and I actually would have liked to have stayed, but most couldn't and automatically treated a woman differently. The change was more favorable with women. We became much closer than before, and most of them began to accept me as one of them. I was happy that my old friends also accepted the few new friends I had invited from my support group in addition. The event continues to rank among my favorite memories. I attended class for the first time as a woman 2 days later. It wasn't shocking because most people who knew me had already heard about my change. I was wearing the same jeans, sweater, and flat shoes as before. My clothing just had a more feminine feel to it. Of course, with my new haircut and a little makeup, my face looked different. Thankfully, that day was relatively uneventful. I had become merely another young woman. March had arrived, and since we were still unsure of how to inform Emily's family of my existence, the only time I still gave the impression that I was a man was when I visited them. Since we spent most of our time together and she frequently slept in my apartment, Emily didn't really live with them anymore, so the vision of them throwing her out could no longer come true. Then Rebecca came to see us and gave us another vision. Because we weren't yet ready for a baby, Emily decided to take the pill. However, my sister's vision seemed to suggest that somehow wasn't enough. And a few days later, the pregnancy test revealed that we were also expecting a baby, due on December 14th. I'd already wanted to do it, but now I had another motivation. I inquired as to Emily's desire to marry me. The answer was yes. We decided to get married on June 20th, 2 weeks after I graduated, so that I wouldn't have to worry about planning too much while I was taking final exams, and Emily wouldn't, hopefully, start showing too soon. After 5 months of hormones, I would probably show on the other side. That didn't really matter, though, because we were both dressed for our weddings. My future in-laws' parents were the last remaining issue. We now had to inform them. So they learned quite a bit of news at the subsequent visit. First, I told them about the wedding, which made them happy because they still viewed me as the ideal son. Then came the baby, which also brought them joy. Then I revealed that I was living as a woman, which initially only shocked them, but things quickly turned hostile, and before we could explain, Emily's father threw me out. As she left, Emily stood next to me. We had hoped that things would improve and that they would come to like me and accept me for who I am, a woman. We gave it our all, but there was no hope. We were both overcome with sadness as we sat in the car after we left and wept for a while. Life went on, and a few weeks later we were able to speak with Emily's mother. After some explanation, she was actually able to accept my decision, but her husband was utterly unwilling to speak with me and wouldn't even discuss me with his daughter. Weeks went by, and I received my graduation certificate in the name of Denise. In order to have 2 weeks of free time to prepare for the wedding and then 1 week for the honeymoon, I had found a job at a bank that would begin on July 1st. The wedding featured not just one, but 2 lovely brides. Even Emily's mother showed up and saw me for the first time as a woman. And she appeared to fully accept me. She even gave me compliments. The only drawback was that the father of my new wife still couldn't accept me and even skipped his daughter's wedding as a result. The highlight of the day was the wedding night. The seriousness of life eventually brought us back after our week-long honeymoon at the Niagara Falls. My new job at the bank had to start soon. After all, someone had to work to provide for our small but expanding family. It was that particular day, November 3rd, 2023, the day I would pass away if Rebecca's prediction came true. However, I was certain that wouldn't occur. After all, I was now a woman, and Denise, not Dennis, would appear on my gravestone if I passed away. I had been working at the bank for 4 months and had been living as a woman full-time for over 8 months. Emily's pregnancy was progressing well, and her large belly was impressive to see. The quality of life was good. Just then, as I was discussing a client's investments, 2 masked, armed men burst into the bank. They swiftly disarmed the security guard and then warned everyone to maintain their composure because nothing would happen. I sincerely hoped so, but I obviously activated the silent alarm. We were then forced to take a seat in a row against a wall while one teller collected the money on their behalf. We heard police sirens when the robbers attempted to flee the bank. This time, they actually moved quickly. Unfortunately, the thieves persisted and took us hostage. They demanded an escape vehicle and $2 million in cash. Naturally, that took some time to plan, and the police most likely further delayed them. The gangsters became more and more anxious as time went on. One of them finally had enough and came over to us while he was on the phone. I overheard him say into the phone, "I have enough of this. I'll show you I'm not to play around with." Then he raised his gun and looked into my eyes, saying, "I bet you don't believe I'll do it. Or why don't you get the money here?" I was terrified he would shoot me. He turned to the person next to me and said, "Stand up," before directing him to the entrance so the police could see him. He shot him after that. Then it was obvious. I would have been his choice. However, I had become a woman, and he most likely didn't want to shoot a woman. Although I was relieved to still be alive, someone else had to pass away in my place. And I had no power. Then I abruptly heard more gunshots. However, not from the thieves. In fact, the robbers were struck. As the gangsters were now likely to kill more hostages, it appears that the police finally made the decision to storm the bank. The second robber became enraged after the first one shot that man, and the police took advantage of the commotion that ensued to kill the gangsters. The gangsters were actually gone, but the victim of their shooting was still alive despite being seriously injured. As an ambulance was already waiting, they hurriedly took him to the hospital. We, the other people, were lucky to escape it unscathed, at least physically. The emotional shock, however, was profound. Even though I was relieved that no one had to die in my behalf, I had to believe that if I had still been a man, I would have been shot and most likely would not have survived. I have a psychic sister. It is now Christmas 2023, and I am sitting in front of the tree with my wife, sister, and mother, just as Rebecca did, and we are overjoyed. My lovely daughter is currently dozing off in her bed. Despite being 2 weeks early at birth, she has since flourished. Emily is working hard to regain her previous weight, and she will probably succeed soon. Although my father-in-law still refuses to learn anything about me, I have faith that he will change his mind eventually. My mother-in-law and I get along much better now. She even pays us frequent visits in our new house. We now live in a 3-bedroom apartment, so there is room for another child if we decide to have one. My small apartment was definitely not big enough for 3 people. I could go back to being a man now that the original motivation for my becoming a woman has passed. But I actually like the way my life is going right now, and going back would probably be more difficult than changing my gender. I won't go back to being a man because I don't really miss it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for a lot more content and early access to YouTube videos.